Hey there, HorseCenter fans. Matt and I are back with another exciting edition of the show. Matt, I have a quick quiz for you. What is going to happen in 5.5 months?
Let's see. Considering I feel like we just ran the race, we're talking 2021 Kentucky Derby.
The 2021 Kentucky Derby. That's right, folks. We are going to do our first 2021 Kentucky Derby show of the year. Right now, we're running down our favorites, our current favorites. Watch it all right here on HorseCenter. Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the excellent pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I am good, Brian. Usually this time of the year, after the Breeders' Cup, we start talking about the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, well, people want to talk about the Derby early, Matt. It's awfully early. But hey, 5.5 months, we at least have a nice list here. I believe we put together a baker's dozen of 13 two-year-olds, soon to be three-year-olds, that we see on the Kentucky Derby Trail, Matt. We're going to talk about those 13 folks. It's early. We hope we can get a handful to the Kentucky Derby healthy and running well. There'll be new horses that come along, of course. But for now, let's talk about 13 of our favorites. Sound good, Matt?
Yeah, and we did okay on this show last year, Brian. We talked about the second place finisher and the fourth place finisher in the Kentucky Derby. Of course, the winner of the Kentucky Derby last year didn't begin running until November, so we didn't get him in there.
Yeah, well, truth be told, Matt, we didn't get him in the day before the Derby, but that's another story. All right, Matt, let's talk about essential quality, because I think he has pretty much wrapped up the two-year-old champion, the handsome gray son of Tappet out of the Brad Cox barn, rolled to victory down the stretch in the Breeders' Cup, Matt, undefeated, looks like a good two-year-old, and he looks like he has the potential to just move on forward as a three-year-old.
Yeah, legitimate champion two-year-old, legitimate early favorite for the Kentucky Derby, 3 for 3, Brad Cox, son of Tappet. We talked a little bit about essential quality in our Stars of the Breeders' Cup show. So good things ahead. Should get better when he returns from racing after a break for the winter.
Yeah, Matt and I agree on the Coming Eclipse Award for essential quality. We believe he's earned it. The Godolphin homebred, certainly bred to get better as distances get longer. He already showed that at 2. He's also got a nice win over the Churchill down main track, and he's also shown the ability to be closer to the lead when he needs to and a little farther when it's fast. So Matt and I have 0 negatives for essential quality, the first horse on our list. Now, the second horse on our list, Matt, there are some negatives, and there weren't any negatives a couple weeks ago, but I've already seen people write off Jackie's Warrior as a Kentucky Derby horse. The way the Kentucky Derby's been won most of the time the last 10 years, I'm not ready to do that. And I'll tell you what, folks, the son of McLean's Music didn't run such a bad Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Yeah, I know he was the heavy favorite, and he faded to 4th, but considering that pace, Matt, first time around 2 turns, I don't want to take Jackie's Warrior off my list just yet.
No, absolutely not. And remembering that he was 4 for 4 and that he had 2 grade one wins in there, which is certainly going to make him one of the finalists for that 2-year-old Eclipse Award voting. But you're right, Brian, and trained by Steve Asmussen. He'll have some time off now and will come back. I'm probably going to guess on the Oaklawn Park Kentucky Derby Trail in the early winter, and with all that talent. And you're right, Brian, the Kentucky Derby in recent years has been won by horses that have been on the lead or pressing the pace. And you can certainly say that about Jackie's Warrior. Going into the Derby, going into the Breeders' Cup, there was a question about him going 2 turns. That question is still there, and maybe that negative that you're mentioning in his resume.
Yeah, and it could end up Jackie's Warrior becomes a wonderful one-turn horse. But let's not forget those three graded stakes wins. As Matt said, two of them were grade ones, easy wins, dominant wins. He was taken slightly off the lead, but he was right there on a super hot pace. This was the hottest pace juvenile that I remember in years. And he hung around. He hung around pretty well, at least in the Breeders' Cup. Yeah, the question of distance will only be magnified when it's 10 furlongs of the Kentucky Derby. But I think Jackie's Warrior has done enough to be on this list, Matt. And I think you hit it on the head. I'm pretty, no matter what happens the rest of the year, and there are big 2-year-old races to come, folks. We have the Kentucky Jockey Club coming here at Churchill Downs, the Remsen, of course, at Aqueduct, the Los Alfuturdi. So there are some big 2-year-old races before the new year. But I'm pretty confident to say right now that Essential Quality Jackie's Warrior will be your exacta in the Eclipse Award race. 1-2 for those two. Another horse coming out of the Breeders' Cup, Matt, he was actually my long shot, and I did cash a ticket with him, loping up for third. He's the only maiden still on this list. He's a son of freshman sire Lauban, but he's also on the other side, Victory Gallop is his broodmare sire. Diadora trains Keep Me in Mind, Matt, 0 for 3, but I think he deserves a spot on this list.
Sure, why not? With a third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and then before that, a second in the Breeders' Futurity. That's a couple of nice performances in graded stakes races, going the distance, going 2 turns. So trainer Robertino Diadoro, who is known mostly for his prowess in the claiming ranks, will try and make an appearance on the Derby Trail and continue with it with Keep Me in Mind. He's a trainer with not a lot of experience getting to the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, and there were a few things I liked about this horse because, hey, first off, with all three of these horses who were main combatants in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, Essential Quality, Jackie's Warrior, Keep Me in Mind, they all have a nice race over at the Churchill Downs racetrack already. Keep Me in Mind, split horses in both of his rallies for second in a maiden race at Churchill, and then the Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity behind Essential Quality, and then made up a lot of ground from way back in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, maybe aided by that fast pace. But he's run 3 good races despite still being a maiden, and he's got a nice race over Churchill Downs where he'll be stable for Diadora come next spring. All right, Matt, also on that Breeders' Cup card earlier, on that Breeders' Cup card, there was the Nyquist Stakes, a horse for Chad Brown. This horse already reminds me of a horse called Practical Joke from just a few years ago. You all remember Practical Joke, who got on the Derby Trail, but I always thought was better at maybe a one-turn mile, rallying into that. Highly motivated reminds me of that a little bit, Matt, a son of Into Mischief.
Yep, son of Into Mischief for Chad Brown. Was a $240,000 yearling purchase and ran a really nice race in the Nyquist in his third start. He broke from the one hole, so he was on the rail and looked pretty comfortable there in fourth place in the early going and sat there coming around the turn. There was an opening, got tipped to the outside, and coming down the stretch, took the lead and just a nice and steadily drew off to an impressive victory.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of 2-year-olds running 1:14 and change for 6.5 furlongs. Of course, we should not forget how fast that Keeneland racetrack was over Breeders' Cup weekend. But anyway, highly motivated, has only sprinted 3 sprints, and he's rallied pretty impressively in all 3. Second at Saratoga in his debut, then a win at Belmont, and then the one Matt was talking about, the Nyquist at Keeneland. So he's yet to do anything but sprint, so we'll need to see him stretch out, but I think he's been an impressive rallier in all 3 sprints. Chad Brown is the biggest trainer probably still out there, Matt, who's never won a Kentucky Derby. He, of course, won a Preakness a few years ago, but the multiple Eclipse winning trainer from upstate New York has yet to win a Derby. Highly motivated is his top one so far on the 2021 Kentucky Derby Trail. Let's head out west, Matt, because a lot of Derby winners have come from the West, both recently and long term. And one horse that zoomed up my list happily, very happily, Matt, because I just won a bunch of money on Red Flag who won the Bob Hope this weekend at Del Mar. 10-1 made me very happy. The son of Tamara Coos, though, could not have been much more impressive in winning that Bob Hope.
Yeah, 10-1 should have done that. 10-1, kind of surprising when you're talking about the connections of Zenyatta. That's trainer John Sheriff and owner Jerry Moss have Red Flag. He won his maiden special weight nicely, and then went into the Bob Hope, where there was a field of 6 coming out of the gate. Red Flag contended that pace early on. There were 4 horses across the track. Red Flag was on the outside. He dropped back a little bit coming around the turn, but then took the lead and drew off nicely to win that race.
Yeah, and as a son of Tamara Coos, you might be worried about the 10 furlongs. I'm not sure if I am. Remember, Tamara Coos' broodmare sire was Lemon Drop Kid, one of my favorite distance sires in America. Anyway, Tamara Coos is a new sire. This is his first stakes winner, and Red Flag looked awfully good. I really liked what I saw. He was green in his first start. Second start was on the turf, and he came from way back to get up in a maiden race on the turf for trainer John Sheriff. So as you mentioned, same connections as Zenyatta, those moss collars for John Sheriff's. Red Flag showed a lot more speed in the Bob Hope. I liked the stretch out to 7 furlongs. He showed a lot more speed, which I was a little surprised at, but then he just blew the field away. So Red Flag, certainly a horse to watch out for out in California, as is Dr. Schreibel, Matt. Now, this is a son of Violence, a pretty young sire as well. But we have a few sons of Violence. Violence is becoming a sire that we're watching closely these days. He's out of a smaller barn for Louis Mendez, but he has been, I think, over the summer, the best 2-year-old that ran at Del Mar.
Yeah, a little bit of a low-profile trainer, a bargain purchase for only $37,000, and as you said, he went into the Del Mar Futurity with a victory and came out of the Del Mar Futurity with another victory. Similarly to Red Flag, it was a field of 6, and this guy pressed the early pace on the outside and went on to get an impressive victory, beating a Baffert horse in that field.
Yeah, Dr. Schreibel, listen, he's one of the more experienced horses on this list, actually. He's run 4 times, and he's run better each time. I believe he's a third, a second, then winning that maiden nicely, as Matt said, and then on to the Grade 1 Del Mar Futurity, where he was clearly best as he made a slight rally. He was stalking, as Matt said, on the outside there, and he was best. So the 2-year-old of the meet at the summer meet at Del Mar, looks like a good Californian. We'll see. We're not sure yet if Violences want 10 furlongs, but Dr. Schreibel looks like a nice horse, as Matt said, for a smaller barn. All right, Matt, we've gone through how many horses already? 6, and we haven't mentioned a Bob Baffert horse yet, and that's a mistake because Baffert has won the Kentucky Derby 6 times in the last 30 years or so. So let's start talking about some Bob Bafferts. I'm not sure if we've seen the very best Bafferts. We probably haven't yet, but there's a couple I want to talk about. Classier has some nice breeding to kind of that classic breeding. Empire Maker. Hey, Empire Maker was second in the Derby, won the Belmont. This is a son of Empire Maker who looked really precocious in his debut, and Baffert thought enough of him to bring him east to run at a 1.16 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So I think that says something in and of itself.
Yeah, that's for sure. And adding to it that this was a $775,000 yearling purchase that was spent by a lot of the connections that and the team that bought Justify for Baffert with SF Racing and Matacat and Starlight. So this is a well-meant horse. Like you said, impressive maiden victory, and then in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, maybe ran into too much too soon. Was close to that very fast pace that you already talked about, Brian, and then coming around the turn into the stretch didn't really have anything left.
Yeah, he didn't have a lot left, but he still was in the middle of the pack at the finish, and that pace was just way too fast. Something like Jockey's Warrior, he didn't do as well as Jockey's Warrior, obviously coming out of the turn and early in the stretch, but he still finished in the middle of the pack. And considering he only had one sprint race going in out west, I don't think it was such a bad performance. I think we'll see a lot more of this horse, who's bred, like I said, to be a classic runner. His Del Mar victory, or Santa Anita, excuse me, his maiden win at Santa Anita was very easy, very impressive. So look for more from Class U. Don't give up on him just because of that Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Another Baffert and another son of violence, Matt, we should talk about his Freedom Fighter. Freedom Fighter didn't win his one performance by much, but he showed some gameness there, and I think he'll probably get better. He was 1-2 in that race, but another horse ran well, and Freedom Fighter fought him off.
Yeah, and like you said, Brian, he didn't win by a lot, and we shouldn't be concerned about that, because that hard-fought victory came over two horses who came right back to win their next starts at Del Mar. So that was maybe not visually impressive, but I think was a good performance in there. And once again, this one comes from those same connections that I talked about with Classier. SF Racing, Mataket, Starlight, but was only a $120,000 purchase.
Yeah, and remember last year, Nadal certainly didn't win his debut by a pole either. He showed some gameness and just kept getting better. Freedom Fighter does look like one to watch, as is a very expensive yearling out of the Bill Mott barn, Matt. I'm talking about Speightstown, and Speightstown is a sire we might not talk about a ton, but he's certainly become one of the best sires in America as well. I'm speaking of Olympiad, and he's had two races for trainer Bill Mott. First one was okay, but the second one was really good.
Yeah, it was, and this is a well-meant purchase, also $700,000 yearling, and in that maiden special weight victory, he beat a horse that we're going to talk about next, Caddo River at Saratoga.
Yeah, Olympiad was third in his debut. It didn't run big necessarily in his debut, but Bill Mott's not known for having them super sharpened for their debut. But that second race where he really beat Caddo River pretty convincingly in a fast 7 furlongs at Saratoga was an impressive performance. So really forward to looking from more from Olympiad as we move on. You mentioned him already, Matt. The next horse on our list is Caddo River, and I got to tell you, I hate to put all my eggs in the Brad Cox basket, but if you ask me right now who my top 2 Kentucky Derby contenders are for next year, it could be Brad Cox 1 and 2, because Caddo River, the son of Hard Spun, was just so impressive this past weekend at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, so and clearly ran into some tough horses in prior starts, and at Churchill Downs at odds of 1-5. So I don't know if that's an indication of the quality of the rest of that field, but he came around the turn and just blew that field away with a front running effort by open lengths.
Yeah, and friends of mine know the Caddo River down in Arkansas. This is a short leaf homebred. Yeah, he's been beaten twice, his first 2 performances, but I thought they were both good. This horse has shown a lot of speed. I'm wondering if he'll temper that speed a little bit, or maybe like we talked about with Kentucky Derby winners of late, he shouldn't temper that speed much. But he ran 2 good races in defeat, one to Olympiad that we already talked about, and another to a horse we're about to talk about after him. But then that mile at Churchill, mile maiden race, he was, after the 2 races in New York, one at Saratoga, one at Belmont, they jumped on him hard, and he won by a pole. He did it in 1:35 over the track that the Kentucky Derby will be at. Caddo River looks like the real deal to me, so watch out for him, folks. The other horse that beat Caddo River is our next horse on our list, Matt, and this is also a horse from the Bill Mott barn, and also a horse who should be bred to get 10 furlongs. I'm talking about Speaker's Corner.
Yes, Brian, and this one is a Godolphin. This is a son of Street Sense. And as we said, he came back and broke his maiden, beating Caddo River, who got a spot on this list. And it's Bill Mott again. And as Brian mentioned, Mott does not usually win, especially on the dirt, with first timers. When Mott wins first time out, they tend to be more often on the turf. So this one's got the breeding, the connections, and a promising maiden special weight victory.
Yeah, there are a lot of similarities between him and the other Mott horse on the list, Olympiad, that we already talked about. This one wasn't a $700,000 yearling purchase, but of course this is a Godolphin homebred, and pretty much right there that this is a well-bred horse. Godolphin seems to be pushing harder and harder for their first Kentucky Derby win. Of course, Maxfield missed it this year, but in essential quality, a Godolphin homebred. And now Speaker's Corner, they are off to a good start in the chase for next year. Yeah, just like Olympiad, maybe not quite ready for prime time, although he rallied for third in his debut. Then he got to Belmont after running third at Saratoga and an impressive rallying victory over Caddo River at Belmont Park. So Speaker's Corner, another one to watch out for as the distances get longer. We're not so sure about the distances getting longer for Prisoner because we just haven't seen Prisoner in a long time, Matt, but the Son of Violence was awfully good in his debut way back when for trainer Todd Pletcher.
Yep, for the team of Todd Pletcher and Rapoli. And I don't know, Brian, I'm trying to remember, did Violence run for Pletcher and Rapoli? But anyway, I'm pretty sure he ran for Pletcher. But this is an interesting horse because Prisoner sold 3 times prior to getting to the racetrack, as a weanling, as a yearling, and as a 2-year-old, ultimately for just under a couple $100,000. Like you said, back in June, made an impressive debut to win by 5 lengths. So this one could be any kind.
Yeah, it was the most impressive early maiden race at Belmont Park for me. Prisoner beat a very well-regarded horse there. Easy, as Matt said, fast time at Belmont. That was literally over 5 months ago, so we'll wait and see. So sometimes these horses, and I've seen Pletcher do it before, come out early with a good performance, and then they reemerge at the right time to get ready for plenty of time to get ready for the Kentucky Derby. So Prisoner was so good back in June. Look for him when he comes back for the soon-to-be Hall of Fame trainer. Matt, that's 12. That's a dozen. Do you want to do one more?
We got one more, sure.
All right, let's do one more. And this is like Caddo River. This horse broke his maiden just this past weekend, but we had to include him. And the breeding of Wolfie's Dynagos, Matt, makes you take a second look.
Sure did, and it made bettors if in that race take a second and third and fourth look after Wolfie's Dynagos was a very impressive winner at Aqueduct, going 7 furlongs at odds of 33-1. You go back and look because this is a half brother to Sadler's Joy, the multi-millionaire, the multi-graded stakes winner on the turf, a son of Ghost Zapper, whose name is in this horse's name, and trained by Tom Albertrani. I think the horse went off at 33-1 for a combination of things. Albertrani rarely wins with first timers. So here was a first timer, bred for turf, up and down, going on the dirt. So 33-1, but wow, what a performance in there. I talked to Albertrani after the race and asked him about going to the dirt, and he said the horse had trained impressively. Galloping on the turf a few times was impressive, but even more impressive in all of his dirt workouts. And like everybody else, they're looking for that big horse on the dirt. Same connections, owners, breeders of Sadler's Joy, excuse me. And now they've got a dirt horse that obviously is going to be able to go the distance.
Yeah, and I have to disagree with you, Matt, a little bit because I think this horse is bred for dirt as well. Sure, he's bred for turf, but I think he's bred for dirt as well. I mean, Go Sapper. I think of dirt before I think of turf. There's some turf breeding in Go Sapper's pedigree as well. On the other side, it's Dynaformer. It's a nice Dynaformer mare that produced Sadler's Joy, a long, I'll say that again, a long-winded turf horse in New York for the last several years. So this horse is bred for dirt or turf. Dynaformers I think of as dirt or turf as well. So this horse is bred for either surface. I'm glad that he got to debut on dirt because we're talking about the Kentucky Derby here. But this is a horse who really should want a distance. I'm glad you got to talk to Albertrani. Listen, Albertrani, you're right. He doesn't win a lot of races, but he sure as heck knows how to train a good horse when he gets them. He's had his share of very good horses over the years. And this one looks to have a lot of potential, not only as a classic horse, but a horse who may be good at anything as he gets more experience. For him to win, like Matt said, first time out, going 7 furlongs was a something to talk about. Wolfie's Dynacoast. I'm not sure if I like that name. Hopefully that name grows on me, Matt, as we watch him move to stakes races. All right, as I said, we got the Kentucky Jockey Club in about a week. We got a week after that, we got the Remsen, then we got the Los Al Futurity. So we got a lot of big 2-year-old races coming up to look forward to. But Matt and I just wanted to get the Kentucky Derby train rolling here on HorseCenter. Hey, after all, it is the middle of November already. Matt, can I get a parting shot from you on our first look at the Kentucky Derby of 2021?
Sure, and with those 3 2-year-old races left, Brian, it doesn't slow down. Then in January, the Derby trails will start kicking off all around the country, and of course, we'll be there on HorseCenter to talk plenty of Derby in the next several months. And as always, I want to thank our producer, Brett Workman, for putting together the show.
Thanks to Brett. Thanks for you all for watching HorseCenter every week. We sure do appreciate it. Matt and I enjoy putting together the show every week, and we enjoy having you join us each and every week. Hey, if you haven't yet subscribed to that little red button to subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Horse Racing Nation, we sure do appreciate it. We also appreciate our sponsor, our partner, the best contest site out there. That's Derby Wars. Matt and I will be back next week. We'll be talking about a big weekend, a holiday weekend, Thanksgiving holiday weekend of racing all over the country. So join us again next week on HorseCenter. Until then, have a great week. We'll see you soon.